I'm AnsibleGuy. Nice to meet you. Today I'll talk about how to install Ansible and some tools to come with it. So, what are we going to talk about? First of all, I'm going to talk about the prerequisites of Ansible, the dependencies, the operating system, packages you will need to install, and how you can install a Python or configure a Python virtual environment to use with Ansible. This is optional, the virtual environment. After that, we'll install Ansible. I will show you how to install existing Ansible roles and/or collections. And to finish it up, I'll go into how to install linting tools and how to use them. All right. First of all, let's go into the prerequisites of Ansible. Ansible is a tool that only runs on Unix systems, so macOS and Linux mainly. So if you're running Windows on your desktop environment or your controller environment, you will need to install a local virtual machine or virtual machine in your virtualization environment that acts as a Ansible controller that executes Ansible. You could use Microsoft Windows Subsystem Linux, but it's not officially supported by Ansible, and I used it before I switched to Linux as my main desktop operating system a few years ago, and it did run good most of the time, but yeah, you will need to play around and test it if you want to use it. It could work for you, for your use cases. It didn't really work for mine. So, yeah. So you have a Linux operating system running, up and running. After that, you will need to install some packages. What packages do you need? You need Python 3. Ansible is a framework built on Python, the Python programming language. And you will need the package manager of Python, so Python 3 pip. Let's check if I have installed those packages. I'm running on Ubuntu, so my package manager is apt, sudo apt install Python 3 pip. So that's the way you would install those packages using apt. I have already installed them. Yes. There you can see I have installed them and they are up to date. So nothing to do for me here. Everything I do here can also be found in the documentation that's linked down below in the video description. So you can just go there and copy paste the commands if you want to. Alright, we have installed Python 3 and Python 3 pip. After that, you don't need to, but I would recommend you to configure and set up a Python virtual environment to use with Ansible. What is a Python virtual environment? It is, you can think of it as a container that holds your Python packages and keeps them separate from other environments. It's really useful if you have multiple Python projects up and running. If you're just using this machine or your Linux operating system as Ansible controller, you don't need this. you won't need this. But I would recommend you to use it if you're using Ansible professionally. So we will need to install the virtual env Python module, Python 3. We're calling the module pip, so the package manager, and we'll tell it to install virtual environment, virtual env. It's already installed on my machine. So after that, we will call the virtual env module of Python, and let's tell it to create a virtual environment Ansible right in the current directory. All right. And there it is. All right. We created a virtual environment, a Python virtual environment. So how do we use it? Whenever you're using this virtual environment and the modules that are installed into it, you will have to activate it. Like that. You can see it is active. And you will see if I'm calling Python 3, when the virtual environment is activated, it is using the Python 3 from the virtual environment. I'm deactivating the virtual environment and checking which Python 3 binary I'm using right now. I'm using the global one. So I'm going back into the virtual environment right now. All right. Now we have all prerequisites met, and we'll go and install Ansible. All right, installing Ansible. There are multiple ways to install Ansible. I would recommend you to install Ansible using the Python 3 pip package manager, because you'll get a very new version of Ansible that way. If you're using apt or your local package manager, your systems package manager, the version will be a little older than what's out there right now. As it is developed very actively, it's nice to keep up to date with the changes and so on. All right, so let's install Ansible. I'm still in my virtual environment. So my Python 3 module pip install Ansible. This will take some seconds. But after that, Ansible is available inside the virtual environment, but only when I activate the virtual environment. If you're not using a virtual environment, Ansible will be available globally, so you don't have to source activate anything. All right. Let's check that Ansible is callable. Yes, there it is. And which Ansible, executable location already written right there. Alrighty. So Ansible is installed. Nice. That was easy, wasn't it? So let's go to the next point, the next topic, and install some existing Ansible roles and collections. Alrighty, I'm creating a project directory right now, call it v1. There's nothing here, so this will be the directory I'll need to switch into once I want to run any Ansible playbooks or execute any Ansible commands, so to say. I'll create some subdirectories, elections, and we need anything else? I don't think so. Alright. First of all, let's install an existing role of mine. Let's install AnsibleGuy Infra WireGuard from Ansible Galaxy. Ansible Galaxy is a platform people use to share their own Ansible playbooks and Ansible roles. But the command also lets you install playbooks and roles from URLs, from Git repositories. There are many ways, so I'll show you in the next step. Alright, let's install it. I've not cleaned my setup, so I'll need to force it. Alright, it is installed. So I've installed a role right now. This is a role, but it's not stored in this roles directory. Where is it stored? It's stored in my users Ansible roles directory. But I would like to install the role right here in the v1 directory roles. How do I do that? I'll add the roles path variable or argument and install it right here. I think it's a little easier to understand your dependencies if you store all the roles and collections you are using in your projects directory. Also, this allows you to keep dependencies separate from different Ansible projects. So not everything is stored in your user-specific Ansible directory, but your project-specific Ansible directory. Alright, that's how to install a role. Roles on your infra. However, that's how it looks. Now, let's install a collection. The collection can also be installed in the users collection path. Most of the time this will be enough, but in my case I would like to install it into the local collections project folder. So the command is pretty much the same. Ansible Galaxy collection install, how the collection is named, and I'll use the path argument to specify the installation directory. Alright, it is installed in the collections directory. There it is. Nice. As I said before, you can also install roles and collections from URLs or Git repositories. One can, for example, also install a collection using Git plus HTTPS and the URL to the Git repository. You can also use Git on its own if you have a local Git repository, or use a public one. yeah, you can do that with p collections. All right, that's it. Yeah. Alrighty. So we've installed Ansible, and I showed you how to install roles and or collections. Alright, let's talk about linting. What is linting? Linting allows you to check your projects or your code, your scripts for existing best practices. So if you're starting out with a big framework or tool like Ansible, there are many best practices out there, and it would take up a lot of time for you to Google it and learn all of the how should I format this and how should I use this tool in the best way possible, so to say. That's where linting tools come in. That's what they are made for. You can run them, the executable, on your project directory, on your role, and it will tell you if there are some, if your structure, your project does comply with existing best practice guides. And it will tell you if there may be some issue and how you could solve it, or where to look up a possible solution to your problem. So I'll show you how to install the 3 major linting tools I use on my Ansible project, and I'll show you how to use them. So I'm still in my virtual environment. I have it activated. So let's call the Python package manager and tell it to install Ansible lint, YAML lint, and lint. Ansible lint is used to check for Ansible best practices. YAML is the markup or the file structure that is used to write Ansible in, and pylint is used to check a Python code for best practices. So I've already installed them in the virtual environment. This might take some time for you. So we are in the current v1 project directory. Let's change into the directory of the role we have installed before. Alrighty. For every linting tool, there's a way to apply configuration. Most of the times there will be you can use a configuration file that is stored in the directory, in the active directory where the linting tool is executed in. And let's look up the files in this row. You can see a .ansible lint YAML file, pylint rc is for pylint, and a YAML lint file. Those 3 files are used by each of those tools. What can you configure in their Ansible lint? In this case, I added some exclusions because some of my roles throw false positives on those tests, or those best practices don't comply with the way I write my roles or I use those tools. Yeah, so let's run Ansible lint on this directory. Pretty easy. You could just run Ansible lint with a dot for running it on the current directory. I will specifically tell it that my configuration file is this one. So, alright, so there was no error, no error was found. If I would disable one of those skips, you will see an error. So you see the file in which the error has occurred or was found, and also the line in which the error was found. If I'm re-adding that exclusion, it's all fine. Alrighty, that was Ansible lint. Let's use YAML lint. That was pretty fast. Let's look into the YAML lint file. This just tells it that the maximum line length is a little longer, and some allowed values for the Boolean true value. And it also extends the default rule set in this case. Else you will throw all the default rules out. That's not really what we wanted. So, if we are removing some spaces right here, YAML lint should throw an error. You see in the playbook YAML, line 10, character 3, wrong indentation. So if we re-add those spaces, it's all fine. Alright, that was YAML lint and PyLint. PyLint can run on single Python files, but you can also run it recursively on the current directory. Sorry. PCS. Yeah. You might not need PyLint in your projects if you're just writing Ansible, if you're just using Ansible, but Ansible can be extended with plugins that are written in Python. I'll show you. Filter plugins utils. One can add some Ginger filters that do some magic stuff in the background. It's really useful if you don't want to add complexity to your Ginger templates or your playbooks. Yeah, I'll go into that in another video. In depth. Alright, that's about it. Let's look into the PyLint RC file just to use less. It has a lot of configuration. You could also set the recursive flag here, I see. And it also has some exclusions. Yeah, disable some exclusions, filter exclusions you could use. For example, most of the time, toc strings are good to have. It's inline documentation for Python modules or Python functions, but in my case, I don't write it. I document the functionality outside the code. Okay. All right, that's about it. So you're up and running with Python, with Ansible, and some linting tools. So you could just start and use Ansible. That's about it for the current video. See you in another one. Have a nice day. And if you have any question or something you liked, you disliked, comment down below. Give me a like if you liked it. Keep automating.